Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Office of Clean Energy Demonstrations Industrial Demonstrations Funding Opportunity Announcement Concept Paper Feedback Webinar. I'm Jeremy Leong, the Program Manager for the Industrial Demonstration Program here at OSED, and I will be kicking us off today. This webinar focuses on the concept paper Encourage Discourage notifications, which were sent out on June 1st. And my team at OSED is extremely pleased by the concept paper response. We received 411, or we reviewed 411 concept papers across every high emitting manufacturing sector. And it's phenomenal to see over $60 billion requested from the department through this program, which is around 10 times the amount of funding we have to implement. So this really speaks to the incredible size of the opportunity we have in the market right now. And we at OSED are proud to support this very important work. So I want to extend a sincere thank you to everyone who submitted a concept paper. We understand that although we have the concept paper phase to help applicants save the considerable time and expense of preparing a full application that may be unlikely to be selected, it's still a huge commitment of time and energy and resources on your ends. With the requested department funding being over 10 times what our program can provide, this program is extremely competitive. So we hope this webinar shines some light on how applicants can strengthen their applications due August the 11th. Now, on to a few housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted on the U.S. Department of Energy OSED website. All participants are in listen-only mode. To turn on live captions, click on the closed captions button indicated on your control panel. We're not going to take questions and feedback today. However, we suggest that if you have questions or feedback, please submit any of these questions to the IDP funding opportunity announcements inbox, which is oced.industrial@hq.doe.gov. And this link will be shown in later slides. Finally, a copy of today's presentation will be posted on the OSED IDP page soon, and a link will be posted on the OSED Exchange under this FOAS post. Recording of today's session will also be available on the webinar's webpage in about 2 weeks. So to get into the disclaimer on this slide, I just wanted to point out that attending this webinar and watching the recording is completely voluntary, and it will not impact the future application selections. There are no advantages or disadvantages to the application evaluation process with respect to attending or viewing this webinar. I will also note that this webinar is not a rule or regulation, and the recommendations it contains may not apply to any particular solution based upon the individual facts and circumstances. So if there are any inconsistencies between the funding opportunity announcement document and the statements in this webinar, just know that the FOA is the controlling document. So with that, it is my honor to introduce David Crane, the Director of the Office of Clean Energy Demonstrations, who will provide some opening remarks. And David, over to you.
Thank you, Jeremy, and thank you and the team for the Herculean work that you all did in reviewing thoroughly all of the 411 concept papers. And I want to start also by thanking everyone participating in this call, and thank you for your interest in the Office of Clean Energy Demonstrations Industrial Decarbonization Program, and particularly those who applied through the concept paper and are considering applications through the full application. It would be hard for me to say how excited we are at the DOE and OSED. Words don't really describe, how important we think this project is. Myself personally have the greatest commitment to this. as far as we know, we think that this $6 billion program aimed at deep decarbonization of the heavy industrial sectors is unique globally, and thus the importance that we all get it right, us enabling you to achieve deep decarbonization is what this is all about. I think as folks on the phone know, 30% of US carbon emissions come from heavy industry. And, we see this program as the way to make, deep strides into cutting that down. But beyond dealing with the challenge, the decarbonization challenge that heavy industry faces, we also think this is a unique opportunity to position American companies as global leaders in the clean energy economy, and to gain for them first mover advantage, in that a lot of these commodities are actually globally traded, globally bought and sold. As Jeremy said, we've been very pleased with the industry response at the concept paper stage. The quality and quantity, the breadth and depth of applications, the diversity of locations. Jeremy mentioned we received 411 concept papers representing projects in all 50 states and Puerto Rico, and an extraordinarily diverse range of transformative technological solutions. He also mentioned that the request of the aggregated requests of these 411 projects totaled $60 billion, which is 10 times more than the funds that we have available, which means that this can be a highly competitive process, but a process where I think there's going to be a rich reward at the end. So we received concept papers from every high emitting and so-called hard to abate industry: chemicals, refining, iron and steel, cement and concrete, pulp and paper, aluminum and glass. We also received concept papers for cross-cutting technologies, particularly technologies aimed at deep decarbonization of process steam. And we have tremendous interest in projects that can apply across industries. A lot of the proposals involve first of a kind or early of a kind clean energy demonstrations, and it's all the goal of everything is to move each industry towards a net zero future. Our goal from the federal government's perspective is to catalyze each of the industries that we're dealing with, and we hope to work with the industry players, and I would say the industry writ large, not just the individual sponsors of these projects, but also with the industry groups, the buyers groups, any entity that regulates the products being made, so that we can create ecosystems of decarbonized industrial products that are ready to be commercialized and form the basis for a zero carbon economy. And that brings me to a fundamental point that I want to emphasize. Obviously, this is a competitive process between projects, and that's first and foremost as you go to the full application phase. Making sure that you have the best possible project proposal is important. But to some extent, this is a competition between industries as well. There are 7 named industries in this hard to abate sector, and we want to deploy as much capital as possible in the industries where we can have the greatest impact, direct impact and indirect impact on decarbonization. So industries that as a group are making effort to define green versions of their commodities, industries that are organizing buyers groups to buy green versions of their projects, this is all important. So a piece of advice I have for you as you contemplate your full application, and I'm sure there'll be page limits in the application, please take a little bit of time in your application to explain to us your vision, how your projects are going to have broader impact, how they're going to help achieve, catalyze, or contribute to their whole industry's decarbonization efforts. Like I said, including definition of product, including organized buyers groups. That's very important to us. We are very interested in knowing how your project will be replicable across the industry, and as I said, in the case of cross-cutting technologies across multiple industries. I also want to mention that, as you all know, who've been through the concept paper stage, there's and read the FOA, we take community benefits very seriously across OSET and across the DOE. And the community benefit issues are a little bit different. We have plenty of applications for brownfield projects and for greenfield projects, but we want to encourage every applicant to make sure that when you come forward with your full application in the community benefit section, you be as specific and as definitive as you can be in terms of the commitments you're going to make, so that we have comfort that that it's words that will be followed by actions. The final thing I want to say is because of the number of concept papers, and because we recognize, as Jeremy alluded to, that it's a serious undertaking to do the full application. Many of you, or many proposals, many concept papers receive discourage notices. Discouraged notices do not preclude you from putting in a full application. But again, given the extent of the competition, we would encourage a lot of the papers that were discouraged, and a lot of which were meritorious, that they look at other avenues within DOE where there might be access to DOE capital to help enable your projects. And I think in this webinar, you're going to hear about one of those avenues, which is 48C. So let me end by thanking you again for your work that you've done to date in submitting a concept paper, and thank you in advance for working to put the best possible proposals forward for the full application, which are due.
Thanks, David, for that introduction. With that, I will pass it to Christina Walren, our Stakeholder Engagement Specialist for the Industrial Demonstrations Program. Christina, over to you.
Thanks, Jeremy. And thank you to everyone. You know, I just want to echo David's and Jeremy's thanks to the work that all of you have done in thinking about this program and pulling together concept papers. You know, as many have mentioned already today, we are really enthusiastic about the response that we saw from industry. And so in a few slides, I am going to go over, again, our objectives for this funding opportunity and a high level of the topic areas. And then I'd like to get into some of the themes that we saw in terms of what we have encouraged and how we are suggesting that applicants strengthen their applications, as well as some of the reasons why proposals were discouraged. I'm also going to talk a little bit about what that means, because as David mentioned, we saw a lot of projects that we thought were absolutely fantastic. And discouraged doesn't necessarily mean that we are not interested in your project as the department. It really is only for the purposes of this funding opportunity, which is one of the reasons why we have one of our colleagues from the Office of Manufacturing and Energy Supply Chains here today to talk about an opportunity that's upcoming, and we really look forward to seeing a lot of these projects come to fruition. Many of you are, of course, quite familiar with what we're trying to do here with this funding opportunity. And of course, David spoke about this as well. But, you know, we really feel that this $6 billion has an enormous potential to catalyze transformational advanced industrial facilities within the United States. Our goal here is really to support projects that solidify a first mover advantage for US industry and low and net zero carbon manufacturing. We also are looking to help substantiate the market for clean products through replicable solutions and you know, projects that will create materials with lower embodied carbon. And then we really want to use these funds for the benefit of Americans. And so an important component of this work is to really build this broadly shared prosperity for workers and communities where these facilities are. When we set out to think about the types of projects we were looking for in this funding opportunity, ultimately, especially given the diversity of industries that we're looking at, we wanted to establish some guiding principles. And so these 4 priorities at a high level are what we're looking for in every proposal that comes through. We want to prioritize deep decarbonization. Again, this is by demonstrating significantly less carbon intensive industrial production processes that lead to cleaner materials. Timeliness is very important, and I will touch on this a little bit from a procedural standpoint, but it's also important because of the scale of the challenge. We really want to demonstrate technologies that can make a difference in the near term, meet the funding horizons, and then also be replicated by fast followers. A really important component of the mission of the Office of Clean Energy Demonstrations is to facilitate market uptake for the technologies that we demonstrate. We don't just want to build one of a kind, we want to build the first of a kind in such a way that others can pick up and take on and replicate. And so that's really important to us. Which also leads into market viability. So we want to see that these technological approaches are going to be viable in the market. We want to see the opportunity for follow-on investments. And also we're prioritizing partnerships between buyers and sellers of the materials produced. That's something that the Inflation Reduction Act actually calls out for us directly. And then finally, another thing that David underscored is the importance of community benefits. Community benefits are an important part of the application process and also get at the nature of what we're trying to do here with this funding opportunity. So we really want to help facilitate substantial engagement with local and regional stakeholders, labor unions, tribal entities, and others across the project lifecycle. And then we also are looking to support environmental justice, diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility and economic opportunities. So with that, let me get into, at a high level, the topic areas for this funding opportunity. So we have 3 topic areas, and really, again, these topics are designed to facilitate a wide range of projects that can really make an impact in their respective industries. They also fall along some of the legislative guidelines that we have. So topic area 1 is funded by the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. We're looking for near net zero facility build projects in that opportunity. We're anticipating 2 to 5 projects. This is the smallest bucket of funding. And the key here is that this one has no statutory deadline, although we anticipate that projects will be in the 8 to 12 years because the replicability and the uptake is also really important to us. For topic areas 2 and 3, these are supported by the Inflation Reduction Act, and they really are the bulk of the funds. And so, for topic area 2, we're still looking at facility level large installations and overhaul retrofit demonstrations. Topic area 3 allows us to focus in on individual unit processes and process lines. We'll talk a little bit about this more in a couple of slides. So this is a bit of foreshadowing, but for both of these topic areas, we are looking at proposals for individual facilities, but also are interested in common technological approaches at multiple facilities. But those should be combined in one application, and we'll get to that in a minute. I do want to double click on the funding timelines here, because I think that it's a really important thing to consider. And we know that we have more funds here, but we also know that these timelines are pretty aggressive. So we have to obligate the funds for the Inflation Reduction Act by September 30th, 2026. This does not mean that projects need to be complete by then. In fact, we have said that we really want projects to reach phase 3, and I would encourage you to look at the funding opportunity announcement to get some more detail on the specifics of the phases. But projects should essentially reach construction by this date, and that's essentially to manage risk. So again, there is some flexibility here, but we are really looking at this timeliness as an important component of these funds. And again, I'll talk a little bit about some of the implications for the decision-making that applicants may want to weigh in the coming weeks. Again, both David and Jeremy mentioned this, so we are focused by legislation on energy-intensive industries and processes, as well as cross-cutting opportunities. And I think we're very happy to say that we received a really resounding response from all the industries and others listed on this slide. It's been an incredibly gratifying experience to review the concepts, and we're really grateful for the opportunity space that we have here. So to get into that, here are some additional details about what we received from each of the industries, the funding that was requested, and the private sector cost share. And again, I think that this underscores the scale of the opportunity. We are incredibly enthusiastic about the potential projects that we'll be able to fund through this program, but we also see great amount of momentum and promise for what industry is looking to do within the United States. And within my role, it's really important to me to help facilitate the success of you all working with the department and continuing to work with the department. So I hope today we'll talk a little bit with about 48C with one of our colleagues, but we really would love to see many and all of these projects happen. And we're grateful for the opportunity that they put forward. It also gets to the point that I'm about to make about encourage, discourage, because we know that it's an incredible amount of time for industry to pull together a full proposal. We really use the encourage, discourage process to help industry manage resources and time. And so that's why you see here that of the 411 proposals that we reviewed, we're encouraging only 130 of them, targeting 22 to 65 awards in total. That's still a lot, and it's going to be a very competitive process. But I hope it gives you some sense for the decision-making and sort of why we're going through this process the way that we are. So the final thing that I want to mention before we get into some of the feedback specifics is the funding opportunity announcement modification. I want to make sure to draw your attention to this because it contains some really important things that we hope will be helpful and are responsive to some of the questions we received and what we wanted to make clearer for industry. So the first thing, which I imagine will be of great interest to this audience, is that we did extend the deadline for this funding opportunity to August 11th, 2023. Now, we still know that this is a really aggressive timeline. And again, we want to underscore our thanks. We are trying to move really quickly to get these funds, out the door and working for the industrial sector in the United States. And we also are very aware of the September 30th, 2026 deadline. And so we are, undertaking an accelerated timeline here, and we appreciate the amount of work that goes into meeting that deadline from you all. So thank you. But then in the technical volume, there are some other things that can be helpful. So for starters, we have given more details about what we're looking for in terms of techno-economic analysis and life cycle analysis. We've also included templates for submission. And so we would encourage everyone to take a look at those. I'll be talking a little bit later about this, but I think that these are two areas where applicants can really substantiate the best case for their project. So would definitely encourage folks to dig into that a little bit as you pull together your full application. The supply chain and offtake piece of this funding opportunity is really important, as you heard David speak to. So there's additional information about a business case analysis that we're looking for in the funding opportunity. And then finally, there's a template for a project summary cover sheet that will allow us to look at different things. There's also additional clarity around technology readiness level, eligible entities, and substantially similar retrofits. All of these things are things that I'm going to be talking about a little bit today as well. But again, please make sure you're working off of the modified FOA. You'll see it's mod 501 in the file name. It's on the Exchange website, and that FOA also has all of these changes summarized and a table at the beginning, so you can go very quickly to what we changed. So with that, let me get into general concept paper feedback things. So again, I want to talk a little bit about the opportunity to flesh out a concept, and what we're really looking for is, you all look to transition your concepts into, full project proposals. So we really see this full application process as an opportunity to expand on the technical, commercial, financial management, and community benefits details of the ideas that you submitted in the concept paper. So today I'm going to talk through some of the common themes and points of feedback for applicants to keep in mind when developing full applications. We also thought it was really important to flag areas that we thought individual concepts could strengthen in a full application. And so, definitely encourage those who submitted concept papers to look closely at the feedback provided in the encourage-discourage letter. For some tailored feedback on your specific concept. But I think it's worth keeping in mind all of these themes. These really get to what we're looking for in successful proposals. And I think that sometimes there is some confusion around what you might be able to change between your concept paper and your full application. We very much encourage you all to evolve your proposal and incorporate feedback. The concept should be similar, shouldn't be fundamentally different from what you submitted, but there absolutely is opportunity to adjust the scope of what you propose between the concept and the full application. So again, before we start to talk about some of these themes, we've already spoken about this today, but I want to underscore what folks should take away from receiving an encourage or a discourage notification. I think that one thing that we've talked about a little bit is that this is really a tool that the department uses to help industry manage the time and resources and just the considerable amount that we know that it takes to actually submit something to us. And so, we really try to encourage proposals, though it doesn't mean that, the entity will be selected if you submit a full application, but it does mean that your proposal is on the right track. We know that there's still going to be significant competition, especially given just the volume and quality of what we're seeing among industries. And then similarly, anyone who received a discouraged notification is very much welcome to submit a full application. We really issued discouraged notifications to try and help manage time and resources for industry. And, but if an entity is interested in moving forward with a proposal, we, really definitely take a listen to this webinar, look at the themes in the letter that you received, and also we're trying to highlight the reasons why a proposal was discouraged, which I'll get to in a little bit. But, I think that can help really focus your resources if you do decide to move forward. And I should also say, we mentioned these slides will be posted. You'll see that they're fairly wordy. Part of that is to act as a resource for you. We've tried to label the sections of the funding opportunity announcement that can give you some additional details as well. Okay, first area of feedback, project scope and plan. I think that one thing, and this is really an umbrella comment, but please consider the FOA essentially like writing to a test. So please look at the questions, respond to the questions, include what is asked for. Proposed work, should really align with the FOA objectives, and we really want to see you essentially show your work for the scope of your demonstration project. So give us the details about the technology and systems to be developed, the emissions reduction potential, the replicability. We also want to see a preliminary development plan and timeline, although we've talked a lot about the phased approach that OSED takes. We're going to be starting down that path, and we would like to see what you all are thinking. We also want a clear-headed assessment of the risks, challenges, and possible mitigation strategies for a proposal. We know that these are first or early-of-a-kind projects. One of the reasons that the government is supporting them is because they are difficult. So I think that, we are really entering these opportunities with the idea that we will be your partner and that we will help to navigate some of these things, but they are things that we want to see an assessment of. And the other piece that I think is really important is the timeliness. Again, as I mentioned, the September 30th deadline is really around construction. And so, I'll be talking in a slide or two about that a little bit more, but it's something that we're really thinking about. Site selection. Okay, so this there are two pieces of this that are important about identifying a project's proposed facility or facilities in your application. One has to do with eligibility. So the Inflation Reduction Act, which is for topic areas 2 and 3, essentially defines, it does define eligible entities as owners or operators of domestic, non-federal, non-power, industrial or manufacturing facilities that are engaged in energy-intensive industrial production processes. And because of that, we need to determine eligibility about, the facility or the facilities. We have additional details in the funding opportunity, which we have gone through before. So, please look to establish your eligibility in your application to us, and then also to outline the facilities that you are thinking, proposed facilities. That's just going to be really important as we look to evaluate applications. Topic area selection. So again, this is one that I've alluded to, and it also gets to a few things. One, I want to underscore that applicants, just because you submitted to one topic area in your concept paper, that does not mean that you are locked into that topic area. So applicants are free to submit full applications to a different topic area than what was identified in the concept paper. Just please keep the project fundamentally similar to what was in the concept. And then I also want to encourage everyone to think about what topic area would be most advantageous. Obviously, there are funding timelines to think about in topic area 2, but the pot of money is a lot larger. And so, we are looking at a really competitive process in topic area 1 for this funding that is, the smaller portion of this funding opportunity that doesn't have a time horizon associated with it. So, really think about if you do think that your project could meet phase 3. And again, I would encourage everyone to look in the funding opportunity. There's a really detailed assessment of what we think is going to fall in each phase. If you think that you might be able to meet that funding horizon, it is worth considering whether you might want to apply to topic area 2 instead of topic area 1. It's just something that I think, we would love to see as many proposals, as many great ideas be successful as possible. And so, we want to give a clear assessment of sort of where we are with some of these topic areas and the funding that's associated with them. Technology readiness level. So as we've said before, we're really looking for first or early of a kind projects with this funding opportunity. So they can truly be first of a kind projects that have been proven at a pilot scale, but have yet to be proven commercially. But for those projects, we really do want to see a substantiation that the proposed technology has reached technology readiness level 6, which, we essentially will think of as having pilot scale results or having some sort of post-pilot ability to scale post-pilot for the technology. And this is essentially to lower risk of market adoption and replicability, and also to really hit on the sweet spot for this funding opportunity. And as we'll talk about in a few slides, there are a lot of different opportunities for different technologies across the department. And so, if the technology is slightly earlier than this, we definitely recommend you consider some of those as well. There are some really wonderful ideas, but for this funding opportunity, we really, really do want to see, pilot scale results or something similar. Substantially similar retrofits at multiple facilities. This gets back to what I was saying about the ability to change project scope from concept paper to full application. So each application must describe a unique scientifically distinct project. However, both topic area 2 and 3 allows applicants to propose substantially similar projects at multiple facilities and locations as a single cross-cutting project. We would welcome applicants who are interested in potentially changing their scope to combine substantially similar retrofits to consider doing so in their full application. Emissions reduction potential. This is really at the core of this funding opportunity announcement. And again, it really gets to this transformative industrial decarbonization and emissions reduction that we're looking at here. So the way to do this is really to include information around your project's target level of performance, a preliminary baseline, and an explanation of how replicability could really drive industry-wide emissions reductions. This is one area where the SPOA modification around techno-economic analysis and life cycle analysis, I think, can be really helpful in allowing applicants to make their best case for their technology. So I would really encourage you to look at this, this modification and the additional documents that we've added as a way to really put forward the strongest proposal that you can when you submit your full application. Replicability and market uptake, David spoke to this as well, and I think that it's really important given the scale of the decarbonization challenge. So we want projects that can be deployed with urgency and the ones that are going to be best positioned to catalyze follow-on investments. So as a result, we're asking applicants to substantiate their pathway towards long-term financial and operational viability and outline how concepts might be replicated. So market liftoff is a really important part of our mission, as I mentioned before. It's also important in the legislation that we're using for this funding opportunity. So, one way that applicants can really strengthen their case is to look at the business case analysis and the supply chain and offtake information. And so this is something that we've modified the FOA to provide additional information around, and would really encourage you to take a look at that section as you pull together your application. Management, organization, and partnerships. So please list key personnel and senior officials that are going to be working on this project. This could include technology providers and project partners. Again, this is an area where you are welcome to evolve your concept between the concept paper and the full application to include additional partners or approaches. We have laid out very clearly that we think that projects will be strengthened by partnerships with technology providers, experts, universities, labor unions, community-based organizations, NGOs, off-takers, and national laboratories. And this is another area where, in addition to laying out your senior and key personnel for the project, think about the team that you're going to put forward for your proposal. The community benefits plan, something that I know is definitely under consideration for many. So these are the components of the community benefits plan for this funding opportunity announcement, 4 of which are standard for community benefits planning across the department, but then due to the legislation which says that we should prioritize projects that provide the potential for the greatest good to be done for the greatest number of people in a facility's location. We also have been looking at some of the other mechanisms that we could do that. But the strategies and methods of accountability for how your project proposes to work through this are really important. So please, describe concepts for how you envision this progressing across the project lifecycle. And like everything else, I think the community benefits plan will evolve with the project phases and as the project, itself evolves. But it's something that we want to see thinking around in the full application, and also this methods of accountability, I think, are really important as well. So with that, let me touch on some of the discouraged feedback themes. Excuse me. There were 4 major themes where we essentially were discouraging proposals from submitting full applications. I want to say again, I know I'm repeating this, but that doesn't mean that we didn't think that they were really valuable projects. And we very much hope that many of these projects will continue to evolve and will be able to come to fruition. And that's why we're going to talk about some other opportunities. But one is the emissions reduction potential. So this was an assessment that the proposal, even if expanded to a full application, would be unlikely to meet the thresholds that we have set for deep facility and or industry-wide decarbonization. Technology readiness level. So this also gets at, either being too early on the technology readiness level spectrum or a little bit too late. Essentially we're saying that the proposal, even if expanded, wouldn't meet the TRL requirements, and it might have also contained other project or financial risks that we didn't think could be sufficiently mitigated in a full application. Market viability, again, we're looking for uptake. So the proposal, even if it expanded to a full application, was unlikely to substantiate a pathway towards this replicability or market viability. And then finally, community benefits. We didn't, for this area, we essentially said that the proposal, even if expanded to a full application, would be unlikely to adequately capture strategies and methods of accountability to ensure the meaningful two-way engagement, quality jobs and workforce development, diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, and benefits to the surrounding community that we have laid out. So for next steps, the timeline. So as I mentioned, and I want to underscore, Full applications will be due on August 11th now. That's an extension of a week to account for the timeline that we had laid out of approximately 2.5 months in our funding opportunity announcement. After that, they'll undergo an application review. And then we expect selections to be announced in late 2023 or early 2024. One piece that I will also mention, once we make selections, those selections will go into award negotiations, where essentially the projects that we want to move forward with will come to the department and we'll work together to put the details around what that project is actually going to look like. And so, you know, just know that that will be the next step after this timeline. And we're really looking forward to that. Again, please complete all application requirements, you know, take a look early at what's going to be required to submit a full application. OSED exchange is where these applications will need to be submitted. The submission time is also quite firm. And also, you know, one of the things that I think is really important is to ensure SAM.gov registration, make sure that that is active for you, and also to obtain a valid UEI number for the full application submission. BOA Q&A, the OSED_industrial inbox is still very much alive. A lot of questions have been answered already, so would really encourage everyone to take a look through those. They can provide additional feedback, but continue to submit if there are questions that you have. There are some questions that we've answered that we know have come up again and again. So please, we think they could be helpful for a lot of people. So on here, I have a couple of questions that I think come up quite a bit. One is around submitting to multiple FOAs or the Loan Programs Office. And so there's detailed answers about that, the eligible entities and the prime recipients, as well as things like Build America, Buy America, and other concepts that come up quite a lot. Before I get to my colleague, finally, on 48C, I want to mention that there is a cross-DOE effort where we are essentially creating these pathways to commercial liftoff, which are designed to be a shared fact base between industry and the government on what it's going to take to actually deploy these new transformative technologies. And so this is really an opportunity to provide us some additional understanding of the risks and barriers that come along with some of these new applications. We already have 4 reports: advanced nuclear, carbon capture, hydrogen, and long duration energy storage. We are adding an industrial report. That's likely going to be released later this summer, but we are going to be holding a webinar with some early conclusions. That can be helpful, we think, as well for those who are developing full applications. So please register. I'll make sure that we continue to promote that. You know, as always, there will be recordings and that sort of thing if you aren't able to attend. Finally, I'm about to introduce my colleague, Rachel, to talk about the 48C tax credit, but we really encourage many to take a look at some of the other opportunities that are out there. So Rachel will talk about 48C, which is very near term and something that we think that should definitely be top of mind for folks. The Industrial Efficiency and Decarbonization Office provides funding opportunities for research development pilot scale demonstrations. There's also the Technology Commercialization Fund, the Loan Programs Office, and many other offices within DOE that offer funding opportunities to support the type of work that we saw. And so with that, let me kick it over and introduce Rachel, who we're so grateful to have here with us today. Rachel works in our sister office, the Office of Manufacturing and Energy Supply Chains. She is a supply chain deployment manager there, and she's going to talk a little bit to you about 48C tax credits, which are an incredible near-term opportunity and something that we really want to harness the momentum of the applications to this funding opportunity and make sure that folks know about it and are taking full advantage. So with that, Rachel, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for that, Christina. Yeah, we're very happy to be here, and thank you for asking us to join. I think there's a lot of probably overlapping interest with the OSED demonstration program and the 48C Advanced Energy Project Credit. So the 48C credit aims to strengthen U.S. industrial competitiveness and clean energy supply chains as the nation transitions to a net zero economy, with the creation of high quality jobs, a reduction in industrial emissions, and an increase in the domestic production of critical clean energy products and materials. Next slide, please. So this is an overview of the credit, which was expanded with $10 billion of funding in the IRA, primarily for these three categories: clean energy manufacturing and recycling, critical materials, and industrial greenhouse gas emission reduction projects. So we are in the round of accepting applications for round one, which will allocate $4 billion of the $10 billion total. The tax credit itself is a 30% investment tax credit, or 6% if the apprenticeship and prevailing wage requirements are not met. And in certain circumstances, applicable entities can elect for direct pay in lieu of a tax credit. So this would be tax exempt organizations like tribal governments and local governments. So key considerations for round one: it's open to all project sizes, and DOE will not predetermine funding allocated to each of those three categories I mentioned. So we're really open to receiving applications across those categories and across different funding sizes. Another key note is that at least 40% of the total $10 billion will be allocated to projects in energy communities, and the aim is for this first round to also meet that 40%. So of the $4 billion in the first round, we're aiming to have $1.6 billion going to energy communities, which I'll get into in a later slide of what those are exactly. Next slide, please. Right, so just getting into a little more detail on these three categories and the scope within them, and then the intended impact. So the first two, clean energy manufacturing and recycling, and critical materials processing, refining, and recycling. These projects are intended to strengthen domestic clean energy supply chains and expand our manufacturing capacity here in the US to accelerate our transition to net zero. I think what's probably most interesting for this audience is the industrial greenhouse gas emissions reductions projects. So that scope includes projects that re-equip industrial or manufacturing facilities to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by at least 20%. The focus and intent of these projects is to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions in the industrial and manufacturing sector, and to catalyze our transition and enhance US competitiveness. But across all three of these, really, they're essential to building a clean energy economy, tackling climate change, creating jobs, and strengthening our energy security. So next slide, please. So of that 40% carve out that I mentioned earlier, 40% of that is allocated to energy communities. And there is a mapping tool which you can go to that shows where these energy communities are. And so as defined in the Inflation Reduction Act, 48C energy communities include census tracts with coal mines that have closed since December 31st, 1999, or census tracts with coal power generating plants that have closed since December 31st, 2009, or any census tracts immediately adjacent to either of the above. So really the goal is to recognize that these communities have felt the impact of these coal mine closures and coal plant closures, and could use some additional funding to help kickstart the transition to a clean energy economy. Not only that, but we also believe that these, energy communities, they have the knowledge, the infrastructure, the resources, and the know-how to play a leading role in the move to the clean energy economy. And so we want to leverage their expertise for that. Next slide, please. So what came out most recently and what's the timeline? Because I think that's probably where a lot of your questions will be. So on May 31st, we released guidance through the IRS, because this program is a program in partnership between Department of Energy, Treasury, and IRS, because it is a tax credit. So IRS will be implementing the program. And so the IRS released the latest guidance last week. It explains the requirements for what is a qualifying project, and gives examples of the types of projects and products. It provides a detailed description of the application process. It provides a detailed description of the criteria and policy factors that we'll consider to evaluate concept papers and applications, including commercial viability, the greenhouse gas emissions impacts, strengthening US supply chains and domestic manufacturing for a net zero economy, and workforce and community engagement. And it indicates the priority areas for the first application round. So at this stage, we are in the concept paper stage. And so concept papers are due July 31st, and we will be having an informational webinar on June 27th. I've also included some links in a later slide that has the link to the IRS notice, as well as to the mapping tool and everything else. And then after concept papers are accepted, we will begin the kind of full application phase, and those will be due in the fall. The date has not been set yet. And so we just really want to recognize that this is a really significant step forward towards advancing the clean energy transition. We're really excited, and we're hoping to see a lot of a wide and diverse group of applicants, and especially excited about those on this call who are particularly probably interested in the industrial decarbonization or greenhouse gas emission reduction projects. Next slide, please. So these are the links I mentioned. The first one here is for the IRS notice. So that will probably answer a lot of questions about how to apply, what needs to go into an application, what needs to go into the concept paper. The DOE 48C overview page here will be kind of a central location of all the links. So I recommend, as we get the webinar registration link up, which should be in the next week or so, that will go on that page. And then there's also the Exchange web portal. And so that is where the concept papers will be submitted. And although it's not yet open to receive concept papers, we have all the templates available on that site. So you can go there and start downloading and filling out the application in the data sheets. And then the portal will be open no later than June 30th for you to start submitting concept papers. And then the deadline will be July 31st. So just wanted to make that really clear, all the dates there. And then on the next slide, we have the key emails. So if you do have any questions or comments regarding like non-tax aspects of the notice, 48cquestions@hq.doe.gov, please email us. We're happy to respond to your questions. And then there's also an email here for any questions related to the application, registration, or submission. And then please refer to IRS for any tax related questions. And I will pass it back to Christina. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Rachel. We really appreciate your being here. And, again, these slides will be posted on our website soon. And we really would encourage you to take a look at those links and also to reach out if there are any connections that we can make or if you have questions. Okay, just a couple of slides left. One is about merit review. So with the number and strength of the applications that we anticipate getting, we really are inviting experts with skills and experiences that could be helpful as we look at determining which projects we'll select for negotiations to sign up with us. So there's a link here on OSED Exchange. Also the QR code, this could be in industrial decarbonization, energy and environmental justice, community benefits, workforce and labor, or diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. And then finally, thank you. I mean, I think that this has been a webinar filled with gratitude from us, but we so appreciate your attending, your thinking about these concept papers, your time and your dedication. It really means a lot. We say it frequently, but it remains true that we really couldn't do this without you. And we think this is an amazing opportunity. So we really, really appreciate it. Please do use the inbox for any procedural questions about the funding opportunity, and sign up for our newsletter to receive the latest on OSED news. You can also go to liftoff.energy.gov if you are interested as well in sort of perusing the previous liftoff reports. I do want to make a quick note on engagement during this time. So while we still remain really interested in continuing to connect with you and understanding sort of the barriers and opportunities in industry right now. We are not able to discuss or provide feedback on individual projects or this funding opportunity announcement. That's really for the purposes of fairness. And as I mentioned before, that's for both encouraged and discouraged applications, all of which are still very much eligible to apply. So we really want to continue the conversation. We just are quite limited right now in what we can discuss on, specific applications to this funding opportunity announcement. But again, thank you so much for your interest in this opportunity in the Office of Clean Energy Demonstrations. We're thrilled with what we are looking at as we move into this full application phase. And we really want to work not just with the folks who will ultimately be selected for projects, but also with entire industries to know how we can continue to help you and provide insight from the department on deploying these new technologies. So thank you again. And with that, I'm going to end our slideshow. And as Jeremy mentioned, this recording will be posted on our website in due course. Slides will be up sooner. Encourage you to continue to refer to them as you develop your full application and share them with others who might be interested. Thank you so much.